This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, tonight's Shiur is really about an amazing episode in this week's Parsha, the episode of Reuven. The Pasuk says in Perek Lamed Hey Pasuk Chavdez, Vayi b'shkoin Yisrael ba'aretz hahi, when Yaakov Avinu was residing in that land, Vayilech Reuven went, Vayishkav es Bila Pilegesh Aviv. Literally, he lay with Bila, the concubine of his father, Vayishma Yisrael. And Yaakov heard, Vayu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar. And the sons of Yaakov were 12. So right off the bat, the end of the Pasuk is quite unusual. The sons of Yaakov were 12. No kidding. I mean, everybody knows that. Nothing changed. We read last week, Leah had 6 kids, and Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah each had 2. So we got it. We know they're 12 Shvatim. Everybody knows they're 12 Shvatim. Why in this Pasuk does it say there are 12 sons of Yaakov? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? It has nothing to do with the beginning of the Pasuk, and it's an obvious statement. So why does the Torah tell it to us? But most conspicuous is the fact that this Pasuk enjoys a feature that Kemat no other Pasuk in the entire Torah enjoys, and that is, despite the fact that it's one big Pasuk, nevertheless, there is a Piska in the middle of the Pasuk. In other words, there's a Pei in the middle of the Pasuk. And if you look in the Sefer Torah, there's actually a space between the first half of the Pasuk and the second half. It's not 2 Psukim, it's one Pasuk. And even though it's one Pasuk, there's still an opening in the middle of the Pasuk. Haloi davarhu, what's going on over here? Why is there this opening in middle of the Pasuk? Okay, so that is an unusual phenomenon of this Pasuk. And this question is raised in Shailas Utshuvas Rav Pa'alim. Who's the Rav Pa'alim? The Rav Pa'alim is none other than the Ben Ish Chai. Ben Ish Chai, who of course wrote the classic halachic work, Ben Ish Chai, which has 2 years worth of halachos, but also he wrote Tshuvos. Ben Ish Chai is one of the great prolific writers. He wrote Tshuvos, Shailas Utshuvos Rav Pa'alim, and he asks, the question is raised, Yesh Piska b'Seicha Pasuk, Sha'oisa Sham Parsha Acheres. You have to understand, it's not just an opening, it's a different Parsha. When there's a space in the Sefer Torah, there's a different Parsha. It's a different halachic Parsha. In the middle of a Pasuk, what's going on? Okay. The Mishnah says in Masechta Brachos, in Masechta Megillah, on Daf Chav Hey, the Mishnah says, Maisa Reuven Nikra V'loi Metargem. Wow. A very unusual halacha, that the story of Reuven is read, but it's not translated. We know in the old times, in Babylonia and elsewhere, on any typical Shabbos, so the Balkari would read the Parsha, and there would be somebody who would say the Targum in order to explain it to the people. So, yet the Mishnah says the story of Reuven, we read it, and we don't translate it. Says Rashi, what does it mean we read it? We read it! We read that Reuven lay with Bila, the Peleg of his father. We read it in the Shul, says Rashi, but we don't translate it. Why? Chayshinon legnusai. We're worried, we're concerned for the disparagement of Reuven. We don't want to embarrass Reuven. Now, there's one detail that I'm chalishing to tell you, and I'm holding myself back. You see, if I want to hold myself back, I do. If I feel I need to. If I feel I need to say something, then I don't hold it back. That's the job of a rabbi. The job of a rabbi is not to service what you think you need to hear or what other people think they need to hear. The job of a rabbi is to say what the Rav thinks needs to be said. You like it, you don't like it. It's the first step of a kehila understanding what a Rav is. Mirz Hashem, hopefully the kehila will get there. But that takes anivos, it takes humility, and it takes a certain amount of submitting. Not that this has to do with anything that transpired, but just letting you know. Anyway, in that being the case, the Targum is not said in the shul, and I'm leaving out a detail. I'm going to tell you later. Remind me to tell you later. The Targum says like this. So the question is, why would we leave out the Targum over here? Why would we not say the Targum? Why would the story of Reuven be read and us not translate it? So Targum Unkla says, let's see what he says. Let's see if he says anything unusual. Says Unklis, V'hava kad shira Yisrael ba'arahahi. When Yaakov Avinu was living in that land, V'azal Reuven went, Ushchiv im Bila, and he lay with Bila. L'cheinasa davui, the concubine of his father, Ushema Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael listen. V'hava b'nei Yaakov trei asar, and there were 12 sons of Yaakov. The Targum seemingly does not add one detail to the meaning of the Pasuk. I mean, the Pasuk is as straightforward as it comes. So what exactly does it help to read the Pasuk and not translate it? It's not like the Targum understands the Pasuk anything differently than we would if we just heard the Pasuk in Shul. So what are we covering up exactly? In other words, why are we afraid to read the Targum? There's nothing the Targum is revealing that's not straight out in the Pasuk. Okay. The first thing is, let's try to understand, what did Reuven do? Reuven is one of the Shiftei Ka. If he really lived with his father's concubine, now we know Bilhah was not just a concubine, Bilhah was a wife of Yaakov Avinu. If Reuven lived with Yaakov's wife, there's no question that Reuven would probably have lost his status of being one of the Shvatim. I mean, that's a serious infraction. To live with Eishes Aviv is a Chiyuv Kares. Reuven would have been banished. Reuven's name would not have been on the Choshen. So, can we say that Reuven just did what the Torah seems to have said he did? And the Gemara in Shabbos says, no, we can't say that. The Gemara in Shabbos says, Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmeni, Amar Rab Yonasan, Kol ha'omer Reuven chata, anyone who says Reuven sinned, Einoi ela toya, is making a mistake. Shenemar, like the Pasuk says, the end of the Pasuk is what? Vayiyu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar, meaning, they're all equal. The same way Shimon's a tzaddik, and the same way Levi's a tzaddik, and the same way Yehuda's a tzaddik, Reuven was also a tzaddik. So what do I do with the Pasuk? Vayishkav es Bilhah pilegesh aviv. Says the Gemara, Melamed shebilbel matzoi shalaviv. What it means is he confused the bed of his father. Umale olav hakasav ki'ilu shachav ima. And the Torah considers it as if he lay with her. In other words, he did not actually have relations with her. He was mavalbel the bed. Now the Gemara doesn't say more than that. So we'll begin with the idea of the tshuva, the Rashba, that the greatness of the Gemara is, the Gemara doesn't always say what it means, so it can mean many different things. So what does it mean that Reuven was mavalbel the bed of the mother? Says Rashi, Mitoich shebilbel mishkavai, because he confused the bed, Mala alav hakasav ki'ilu shchava. The Torah considers it as if he lay with her. Vilama bilbel, why did he confuse it? V'chilal yitzuai, and profane his couch. So Rashi says the pshat that we probably all learned in yeshiva. We're all familiar with this, and obviously I'm not here to tell you what everybody knows already. I'm going to tell you a completely revolutionary understanding of the Ma'aseh Reuven. I'm going to tell you two revolutionary understandings of the story of Reuven. But the pshat that we're all familiar with is what? That when Rachel died, Yaakov took his... Now we know Rachel was the primary wife. So that means that if Rachel was the primary wife, Yaakov's mita was normally stationed in Rachel's tent. However, now that Rachel died, now the question is, who is second fiddle? Who's number two? Actually, there are four players over here. There's Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah. By the way, there's a famous remez of Chassam Sofer. If you want to remember, the wives of Yaakov Avinu. So we know Golas Mitzrayim is called Kur HaBarzel, the iron furnace. Why Barzel? Bilhah, Rachel, Zillah, Leah. That's the remez to the four wives of Yaakov. Barzel, Bilhah, Rachel, Zilpah, Leah. And this is how you remember. Bilhah goes with Rachel, Zilpah goes with Leah. Barzel, Bilhah, Rachel, Zilpah, Leah. That being the case, now the question is, who does Yaakov like second best? Now that Rachel died, so, Reuven his whole life always felt bad that, his mother was second fiddle. So he probably figures, look, now that Rachel died, probably Yaakov Avinu will move the bed into my mother's tent. And lo and behold, Yaakov Avinu takes the mita and he puts it into Bilhah's tent. So Reuven got upset. Reuven got angry. How dare you undermine my mother? So he took the bed out of Bilhah's tent and he moved the bed into his mother Leah's tent. Say Chazal, because Reuven meddled in the private affairs of his father, God in his microscopic vision, you see, this is Yesod Gadol. The Torah is exaggerated. I heard from Rav Victor Miller and all the Talmidei Slabodka, and my yeshiva also, Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, Penachlibu Zertzak Levracha, and all the Talmidei Slabodka, their shita is that the Torah is exaggerated. What does that mean? That the Torah is a microscope. Why would it be a microscope? Because it's the eyes of God. The same way, I'll give you one mashal. If you're walking down the street and you have your neighbor's kid and you're walking your neighbor's kid home, and you see your neighbor's kid has cholent on his shirt, what do you care? You say to yourself, he's just a kid, he accidentally spilled some cholent on his shirt, doesn't bother me. But if you're walking your own kid and you see your kid has like a little speck, what's going on? You can't keep yourself clean. What's the difference? Because when it comes to someone you love and someone who you care about, your eyesight starts being much more careful because you want them to be perfect. Because Rebbeinu Shalom loves Klal Yisrael, and especially he loves the tzaddikim, anytime they commit the slightest infraction, he blows it up. Why? Because he loves us. Where does this yesod come from? It's a Pasuk in Amos. Rak eschem yadati mikol mishpachos ha'adama al kein efgod aleichem avon nosechem. Because I only love you, that's why I always visit punishment on you. In other words, Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be perfect. Not because he's trying to get us, because he loves us. Because he wants us to get Olam Haba. But that's a discussion for another time. So Reuven never lived with Bilhah, but because he meddled in the private affairs of his father, the Torah treats it as if he lived with Bilhah. But still, Rabbi say, it would seem then that what Reuven did was maybe inappropriate for a child, for a son, to get involved in where his father is interested. Maybe you would say, still, maybe it's not the correct thing to do. So what I'm going to present to you tonight are two novel perushim in this Pasuk, that they are so incredible and so amazing, that according to these perushim, Reuven did absolutely nothing wrong. And according to these two perushim, Reuven himself was so happy with them that he actually came back to this world. And I have a piece of information I need to tell you, I'm still holding myself back. I'm restraining myself till later. Reuven himself. Now, one of the perushim comes from a Gadol Yisrael that, as far as I know, we don't know anything that this Gadol Yisrael ever said on Chumash. He's so well known for something else. He didn't write on Chumash even. He's well known for something else, and this is one perush that we know that this Gadol said, and it's so incredible that we're going to learn Reuven himself came to this Gadol and kissed him. Comes the Chida, and I'll tell you right now, the Chida writes in at least 5 different svarim. Okay? And the Chida, again, sure, if you've been coming to Shem, you've heard the name the Chida. The Chida writes in at least 5 svarim that he heard a pshat from the Baal HaMappa, the master of the tablecloth. Who's the Baal HaMappa? Who's the master of the tablecloth? So we know that the Beis Yosef wrote the Shulchan Aruch, right? What's Shulchan Aruch? Set table. The Rama is called the Baal HaMappa, the master of the tablecloth, because he sort of covers the Mechaber. He's the tablecloth of the Shulchan Aruch. The commentaries on the side are called Noisei Kelim. Now, I don't think anyone here ever heard any perush that the Rama ever said on Chumash, because we don't have a commentary on Chumash on the Rama. This is a perush that the Rama said on this Pasuk that is quoted, we'll see by who, that we have a Mesorah from Gedolei Yisrael that the Rama said this perush, and when the Rama said this perush, Reuven came to the Rama and gave him a Yasher Koach. So one of the people, the Shiur is posted in different Makayimos. People listen different venues. So somebody said, what? Reuven came to Rama? Reuven and the Rama were not alive in the same time. I said, yeah, no kidding, Yeah, that's the chiddush over here. That Reuven came back to this world and he kissed the Rama. Now the Chida in the Sefer Maras Ha'ayin does not say.
I'm sorry, the Chida or the.
The Chida brings this pshat in the name of the Rama.
Oh, he kissed the Rama.
The Chida didn't kiss the Rama.
No,
he probably would have if he saw him,
Reuven kissed the Rama.
Reuven kissed the Rama. Reuven kissed the Rama. Yeah. So the Chida, let's start it this way. Number 8 in the Sefer Maras Ha'ayin on Masechta Shabbos, Chida writes that he heard in the name of Rav Moshe Isserlis. Let's just get for a second. Who's Rav Moshe Isserlis? Rav Moshe Isserlis is the Rama. He lived in Krakow from the year 1530 to 1572. Very short life. The Rama lived only 42 years. Now, why is he called Isserless? His father's name was Rabbi Yisrael Isserlin. Rabbi Yisrael Isserlin. So his last name was a takeoff of his father's middle name. And the Rama was a Talmud of the leading Rosh Hashiva of the time, who was what? Rav Shalom Shachna. And then later he became the son-in-law of Rav Shalom Shachna. And the Rama says a pshat. The Chidah doesn't tell you what it is yet. And then the Chidah says, there's another way to read this Pasuk. And this Perush I heard from Rabbeinu Ephraim ala Torah. And Rabbeinu Ephraim says that when this pshat was said, Reuven also came back to this world and kissed Rabbeinu Ephraim. So one thing we see is that Reuven very much appreciates if you're able to interpret these psukim in a way that does not criticize him. Because, it's not like tzaddikim come back to this world. I mean, look, I've been giving shiur many times in the shul about different gedolim. They never came back. I didn't get any kisses from them. Okay. But I don't know anybody who did get kisses from gedolim. I think we mentioned that the father of the Rosh came back. But it's a chidush. It's not an everyday thing where people come back from the next world and kiss Rabbanim. Usually Rabbanim get other kinds of reactions. But kisses are not the normal. So, the question here is, what are these two Perushim in the Pasuk that so pleased Reuven, that Reuven kissed the Rama, and that Reuven kissed Rabbeinu Ephraim? So, the Chidah in a Sefer Kisei Rachamim, which is a commentary on Masechta Sofrim, quotes what these two Perushim are. So first let's begin with the Perush of Rabbeinu Ephraim. So skip to number 23. This is the Perush of Rabbeinu Ephraim on this Pasuk, Vayhi b'shkoin Yisrael ba'aretz hahi. Okay, Rabbi say, fasten your seatbelts. This pshat is mamish oyam b'noira. Vayhi b'shkoin Yisrael ba'aretz hahi. And Yisrael was living in that land. Vayelech Reuven, and Reuven went. Where did he go? Away. Reuven went away. Where's away? He ran away from home. He left the house. Why? Because Vayishkav es Bila Pilegesh. Because now Yaakov wanted to live with Bila and not live with his mother Leah. And who ran away? Aviv, his father. His father was, in other words, who wanted to live with the Pilegesh? His father. Vayishma Yisrael, and Yaakov heard. And Yaakov was very upset that Reuven ran away from home. So you know what he did? He went to get him. He went to get him back. Oh, once he got him back, Vayiyu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar. Now there were 12 kids again as opposed to 11. So what did Reuven do wrong according to this pshat? Nothing. He was just insulted. Sometimes people get insulted, they run away. So what do? You just bring them back, that's it. Get over it. You live on. So listen carefully to how you read the Pasuk. Not the pshat, Vayelech Reuven went, Vayishkav es Bila, and he lived with Bila, Pilegeshav, the concubine of his father, Vayishma Yisrael, and Yaakov heard that Reuven lived with his father. No. Vayelech Reuven left. Why did Reuven live? Because Vayishkav es Bila Pilegesh. Because somebody lived with Bila, the Pilegesh. Who lived with her? Aviv, Reuven's father. And Vayishma Yisrael, Yaakov heard that Reuven left. So what did he do? He brought him back. Vayu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar. So Baruch Hashem, the family is complete again. Says Rabbeinu Ephraim, when this pshat was said, V'shamati shechosid echa dara zeh b'drash barabim. I heard a rabbi say this pshat barabim, and Reuven walked into the shul. B'chaloim, in a dream. V'nashko al rosh, and kissed him on the head. In other words, Reuven said, thanks so much. For the last 1,000 years, people thought either I lived with my mother, or I messed around in my father's bed. No, I didn't do anything. I just ran away from home. You never heard that pshat before, right? But that's not the pshat of the Rama. The Rama's pshat is even more amazing. That's the first pshat of how you can read this pasuk. The amazing pshat that the Rama says, that the Chidah quotes in 5 mekaymos. Okay? This is the only perush you will ever hear that the Rama ever said al Torah. If you come up with a pshat, you say, Rabbi, what are you talking about? The Rama says pshat over here? Good, then you'll find the second one. I'm not familiar with any pshat that the Rama said al Torah. The Rama says an amazing thing. Let's go back to number 1. I'll show you how to read it. We're going to read the Pasuk. This is what the Chidah quotes in number 8, in number 9, in number 10, in number 11, and in number 15. Vayihi bishkoin Yisrael ba'aretz. Yaakov Avinu was living in that land. What happened? Rachel died. So now Reuven's thinking to himself, I wonder where Yaakov is going to put the Mita. So what's Reuven doing? He's just like walking around. He's walking around. He's not doing anything. He didn't touch anything. He would never chas v'shalom tamper. He's just walking around. He wants to. Let's see what the tata's going to do. Vasfir the tata. Vayishkav es bila. So what did he do? Vayilech Reuven. Reuven's just walking around. Vayishkav es bila. And at the time that Yaakov wanted to, Vayishkav es bila. At the time that he wanted to live with Bila, Pilegesh, the concubine, who wanted to live with Bila? Aviv, his father. Vayishma Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu hears footsteps. And the halacha is that if you hear somebody, you're not to be engaged in relations if people are going to know about it. So at that moment, what happened? Reuven's footsteps interfered with Yaakov living with Bila. You hear the pshat? Vayihi b'shkoin Yisrael ba'aretzahi, when Yaakov was living. Vayelech Reuven. What did Reuven do? He was just walking around, tiptoeing around. When? Vayishkav es Bila pilegesh aviv. When Yaakov wanted to live with Bila. Vayishma Yisrael. Yaakov heard the footsteps. Now I'm going to throw something in Al Pi Kabbalah that the Ben Ish Chai adds. Very important. The Arizal writes in Sefer Likutim. You ever wonder that Yosef has 2 kids, Menashe and Ephraim, and they get Yerusha in Eretz Yisrael? Well, wait a second. They're grandchildren. Grandchildren don't get Yerusha. Reuven's kids didn't get Yerusha. Shimon's kids didn't get Yerusha. In other words, as primary heirs. Why Yosef's kids? Why Menashe and Ephraim? Says the Arizal. Every Jew needs to know this. Yaakov Avinu was supposed to have 14 children. When was he going to have the last 2? That night! The night that Reuven was busy tiptoeing around, Bila was going to conceive Menashe and Ephraim. So now there's a problem. Because their neshamas already came down, ready to go into Bila. But they couldn't because Yaakov didn't engage in. So now they're stuck. So Hashem said, just stay there. I'll give you to somebody else. And Rebbe Hashem put the neshamas into the wife of Yosef. So they were really the children of Yaakov. That's Pshat. Menashe ve'Ephraim keruven v'Shimon yiyuli. Menashe and Ephraim are like Reuven and Shimon. Not I love them like Reuven and Shimon. They're my children like Reuven and Shimon. Who stopped Menashe and Ephraim from being conceived? Reuven. That's why Reuven lost the double portion to those 2 guys. That's what Arizal says. By the way, if you want to know, the Malbim al HaTorah quotes this. He brings this down. But so the Rama, listen carefully, is reading the pasuk like this. A very different reading, a novel reading. Vayihi b'shkoin Yisrael ba'aretz hahi. When Yaakov was living in that land, Vayelech Reuven was walking around. When Vayishkav es Bila pilegesh aviv, when Yaakov wanted to live with Bila. Vayishma Yisrael, Yaakov heard the footsteps. Oh! Guess what happened now? Instead of there being 14 children, Vayiyu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar, there are only 12 children.
Yaakov had 13 with the daughters.
We're talking about the boys. Yeah, 12 sons, yeah. So, that's why at the end of this pasuk it says Yaakov had 12 sons. Oh, what was that guy do? The price of Tin Shan? Everybody knows he had 12 sons. No, because of this episode, 2 of the kids never came down. So the 2 pshatim read there are 12 sons of Yaakov a little differently. Rabbi Ephraim reads it. Reuven ran away. Yaakov retrieved him. So now there are 12 sons again. And the Rama reads it that there would have been 14, but because Reuven interfered with. So in other words, Reuven was walking around innocently. He just was trying to see, what kind of, where Yaakov was going to set up shop. And says the Chidah, when the Rama said this pshat, Reuven came down to this world and went to the Rama and said, Rabbeinu Moshe Yisraelis, Yasher Koichacha, you're a great guy. I got to give it to you. I really appreciate that, Reuven said. So 2 times in this world, Reuven came downstairs and he gave a shkoyach to 2 Gedolei Yisrael. He gave a shkoyach to the Rama and he gave a shkoyach to Rabbeinu Ephraim. By the way, regarding the Rama's pshat, Reuven told the Rama, that's taka what happened. Okay? Reuven told the Rama, you got it right. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I did.
Well, which is correct.
You want to know Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim, how could both be pshat? That's beyond the scope of tonight's share. Now, Rabbi say, what? Vayishkav is bila pilegesh. It could.
Shalom, shouldn't say Aviv, so that Yaakov himself.
Yeah, maybe. I hear. Okay. So, this pshat is the pshat that Chida brings out in a number of places. The original makar of this pshat, just want to tell you, the original makar of this pshat is a sefer that we never featured before. It's the name of the sefer is Chidushe HaGershuni. Chidushe HaGershuni, I just want to tell you, is written by Rabbeinu Gershon ben Yitzchak Ashkenazi. Rabbeinu Gershon ben Yitzchak Ashkenazi was born in Germany, in Metz. And he was nifter in Metz in 1693. So you're talking about a pretty early Rishain. It's very interesting. He was probably a Talmud of the Maram Shif. In Parshas Shmini, he quotes from the Maram Shif. And he left Germany to study in Poland, in Krakow. In Krakow was the center of learning in the world in the time. In Krakow you had the Bach, you had the Rebbe, Reb Heschel, you had somebody called the Tzemach Tzedek. Now probably most people when they hear Tzemach Tzedek, who do they think of? Lubavitch. No, different one. This is the original Tzemach Tzedek. The original Tzemach Tzedek is Reb Menachem Mendel Krachmel. He's quoted in the Magen Avram. For example, there's a halacha that on Shabbos one should try to eat fish by all 3 sudos. Yeah, right? So, aside from washing by Shabbos, a person should try to have fish. It's brought down in the Magen Avram. However, says the Tzemach Tzedek that if the sellers hike up the prices, you don't have to eat fish. You don't have to be gypped off because, some people want to take advantage of the fact that Jewish people need to buy fish. Anyway, so the Reb Gershon Ashkenazi comes to Krakow. He marries there a very young girl, the great-granddaughter of the Bach, and she dies. Then he marries the daughter of the Tzemach Tzedek. Okay, so he marries the daughter of Menachem Mendel Krachmel. At that point, his father-in-law is the Rav of Nikolsburg, so he has to find another job. So he becomes the Rav in Prastishtov, and then in Hanna in Germany. And then when his father-in-law passed away, he became the Rav in Nikolsburg. And then he became the chief rabbi in Vienna. And in 1670, the Jews were kicked out of Vienna, so he became the Rav in Metz. The Chidushe HaGershuni, which again, this is a very old sefer, a sefer of an early Achroin. He quotes this pshat of the Rama, and he says that when the Rama said this pshat, Reuven came to the Rama and gave the Rama a shkoyach. The Shoylu Meishiv. Now the Shoylu Meishiv, Rabbi Yosef Shalevi Natanzan, the Pasuk of Lemberg, was a descendant of the Rama. He quotes that the Rama said this pshat. Lamaisa, the Stei Chemed, you ever saw Stei Chemed is like an encyclopedia of Talmudic principle. Stei Chemed says that he heard that in Yerushalayim there was a discussion among Talmidei Chachamim. How do you interpret this pasuk about Reuven? And this Talmid Chacham said one pshat, another Talmid Chacham said another pshat, until a little kid walked into the shul and said, Rebbe, let me say my pshat. So he said his pshat, and he said this pshat that we're saying that the Rama said, and everybody was masking, this kid got it right. And the Stei Chemed says this is a pshat that the Chida brings down, but it's very doichek to sort of stick it into the Gemara that Bilbel Yitzue Aviv means that he just was walking by and that's why his father couldn't have relations. But the Sefer Magadim Chadashim says, why is it doichek? It's not doichek. If the Chida accepted it, and the Chidush HaGershuni accepted it, and they said this is pshat in the Gemara, then this is the legitimate pshat in what transpired. By the way, the child who came into the shul to say the pshat, Many Sfarim say that child, we have a tradition, was Reuven ben Yaakov himself. That was Reuven. Okay, so now let me just tell you one more step, and then I'm going to tell you what I've been holding in. Come back to the Ben Ish Chai, in the Chuvas Ben Ish Chai. Why is there an opening in this pasuk? It is, as far as I know, maybe the Aseres Hadibros you have in, a pei, Lo Sirtzach, Lo Sinaf. But here, smack in the middle of the pasuk, a different parsha. What's even more conspicuous is, does anybody know the next pasuk after Vayu B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar in this week's parsha? The next pasuk is B'nei Leah, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, B'nei Rachel, B'nei Bilhah, B'nei Zilpah. In other words, the words Vayu B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar have nothing to do with the beginning of the pasuk. They should be the first part of the next pasuk. And instead of it being the beginning of the next pasuk, it's the end of the last pasuk. It has nothing to do with the last pasuk. It has everything to do with the next pasuk. Why is there a space over here? So the Ben Ish Chai says that the Marsha explains that yes, really the end of the pasuk should be Vayishma Yisrael, and the beginning of the next pasuk should begin Vayu B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar. But you know why the Torah wants these words to belong to the first pasuk? Because the Torah is trying to say, whatever you're going to say Reuven did, at the end of the day, there are 12 equal sons of Yaakov, Kulam Tzadikim. In other words, the Torah is vouching for Reuven that he didn't sin. That's why, even though, in a way, it's part of the next pasuk, that's why there's an opening. In other words, the Parsha ends after the words Vayishma Yisrael. You look in the Sefer Torah, the Parsha ends after Vayishma Yisrael, and the words Vayu B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar are grouped with the next topic. But in Psukim, our tradition is, it's part of the first subject and not the next subject, in order to vouch for Reuven that no matter what you think Reuven did, they're all equal. Then the Ben Ish Chai quotes a medrash that says also an awesome shot. It's a medrash in Parshas Nasai. On the Psukim of the Karbanos that Reuven brought on the days of the Nesiim, so the medrash says that Reuven was sort of an outcast. After he did this, the other Shvatim threw him away. The opening in the Chumash represents the hands of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the open hands of Hashem that were Makabel Reuven B'tshuva. Because we know no matter what a person does, Yadai Psucha L'Kabel Shavim, the Rebbeinu Shalom's hands are always open to accept those who repent. So the opening in the Torah is like Hashem opening his hands to take Reuven back in Tshuva. Oh, and once he did Tshuva, Vayu B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar, they're all tzaddikim.
What's a pay for then?
Pay means that there's an opening in the Sefer Torah.
Oh.
There's no actual pay. Pay just symbolizes an opening. But says the Ben Ish Chai, but based on the Chidah, based on everything we mentioned until now, that Reuven didn't do anything wrong. What did Reuven do? Reuven didn't live with Bilhah. Reuven didn't touch the bed. What did Reuven do? He was just, tiptoeing by. He was walking. And what did he cause? Did he do anything wrong? No. He was mafsik in the relation of Yaakov to Bilhah. He made a hefsik. The opening in the Pasuk indicates that even though it says he lay with Bilhah, all he did was, he was mafsik Bilhah. That's all he did. In other words, the opening is giving you the true meaning of what Reuven didn't really do anything wrong. All he did was he was mafsik ba'oisayinyan. All he interrupted it. Because he interrupted. In other words, the Torah Shabbat Peh is explaining that Pshat in the Vayishkav is he was just mafsik. So he interrupted it. He interfered with that. So here we are. The whole Shiur is about what? Reuven. And how Reuven didn't do anything wrong. So I woke up this morning and I came home. And the first thing I saw was, today was the yahrzeit of Reuven. Amazing thing. Today, Yud Dalet Kislev, is the yahrzeit of Reuven ben Yaakov. Amazing. So hopefully tonight also works, But the ikar is the text, the email went out on Yud Dalet Kislev, right? So, amazing. Okay. Now, another descendant of the Rama who says this pshat is none other than Reb Ephraim Zalman Margolius. Reb Ephraim Zalman Margolius was a contemporary of the Chassam Sofer. He wrote Shas Teshuvas Beis Ephraim, also In Shulchan Aruch, you look on the side of Shulchan Aruch, you have Hagois Yad Ephraim. We actually, in the Daf HaShavua Shiur, we spoke at Hagov Yad Ephraim Monday night. And he says, he is a descendant of the Rama. And one time a rabbi got up in shul and said, I heard the Rama said this pshat in the Chumash. And said the Rama, Rafaim Zar Margolis, this is in number 22 in the Sefer Malas HaYochsen. Says Rafaim Zar Margolis, when I heard this rabbi say this pshat, I'm thinking, I don't know, these rabbis, sometimes the things they say, sometimes they exaggerate things. They make things seem more than they really are. And Rafaim Zar Margolis says, I never really took it that seriously, this pshat. Until I opened up the Chidushei HaGershuni. Chidushei HaGershuni, like we mentioned, was mamish like a kadmoin. It was an early achar. And he says that he heard from Isaiah that he said this pshat. And I learned a big lesson from here. That sometimes you hear something and you think it's true, but you think it's a little too much. And you should know one day you'll realize it's head on point. It's exactly the way it is. Says Rafaim Zar Margolis, when I saw the Chidushei HaGershuni, he says, and then look at number 22, very striking words, 4 lines to end. V'chazu man gavra rabba kamasid olav. Look what a great man testifies about the veracity of this pshat. Demilsa sheshama kain, he heard this, umibli sav sheshama g'doilim. He certainly heard from g'doilim. V'amarti, and from here I learned the lesson. Al tehi maflig l'chol davar. Never say, something, it's far-fetched. The next time you say something far-fetched, it doesn't come back to haunt you. And I was very happy to see that something that people say over in the name of Isaiah is exactly what he said. Before we move on to the final segment, I just want to tell you, a number of Sfarim bring down that this pshat, here's the key. Here's the key. A number of Sfarim bring down that the Rama wasn't the one who said it, it was the Megala Amukos who said it. So for example, there's a Sefer TorahAnytime in number 21, and there's a Sefer number 18. You probably never heard of this, I didn't either. Yafeach leketz yafeh. He also brings down this pshat from the Megala Amukos. So the Sfarim discuss, who was it? Was it the Rama or was it the Megala Amukos? Probably it was one of them, but they were both from Krakow, so I got a little confused exactly who said it. But be it as it may, here's this Geschmack. Same cemetery. So I'm going to tell you something. So here's the question. Very nice pshat. Again, the way the Rama reads this pshat is, Reuven was walking around when Vayishlach es Bilhah, when Yaakov wanted to live with Bilhah, Pilegesh, the concubine, who wanted to live with Bilhah? Aviv, his father wanted to live with Bilhah. Freck, the Rebbe of Shmelkom in Nikolsburg. But the Targum doesn't say that. Because if you look in the Targum, look at number 5. Ushechivim Bilhah, he lived with Bilhah. L'cheinasa da'avuhai, the concubine of his father. Not that he lived with Bilhah, and who lived with Bilhah? Avuhi. Da'avuhi means Reuven was the one who lived with the concubine of his father. So the Targum obviously doesn't hold of this pshat. Says the Rebbe of Shmelka, that's why the Gemara says we don't read the Targum on this Pasuk. Because the Targum reads the Pasuk kipshutai. But that's not really what happened. What really happened is what the Rama says. And that's why this is the one Pasuk in Chumash we don't say the Targum. Unbelievable. The Rebbe of Shmelka says that. The Chida says that. And the TorahAnytime says that. That is why this is the one Pasuk in Chumash that we don't read the Targum. Because the Targum is not learning like the Rama. And in order to preserve the dignity of Reuven, we skip the Targum on this Pasuk. Mamish beautiful. So let's end with a story. Once upon a time, there was a city. And there was a big fight in the city. Mamish, the whole city was baroigas. Everybody was fighting. Something happened. Doesn't matter what happened. Everyone was at each other's neck, and everyone was clawing at each other. And it was machloikis, and it was bad news. And they had a way to quiet the machloikis. If they would basically make up a story that there's one guy in the city responsible for the whole mess, then everybody would just get angry at him, and it would be Shalom Al Yisrael. So the Shiloh that was brought to none other than the Rama was, Could we make up a story about a guy, mamish sheker v'chazav, in order to create shalom in the city? That's a shaila. Okay? For the sake of shalom, are you allowed to make up a baba maisa? But it's going to be about somebody, and it's going to be sheker, it's going to be mamish moitzi shemra. Says the Rama, mutter. You're allowed to make up a baba maisa about somebody and destroy somebody in order to make shalom in the city. Says Rama, where do we learn it from? From a Gemara. Look at number 29. The Gemara says there's something called a saita. What's a saita? A woman who's accused of infidelity. And basically we know she secluded herself with a man. And there's evidence to say she did something, but we don't have witnesses. So basically we tell her, if you don't admit that you lived with this guy, we're going to make you drink the waters. We're going to be erasing God's name. You're going to die. You're going to blow up. It's going to be torture. Just admit you did something and you'll be free. You'll be okay. We don't have Eidos anyway, so just admit you did it. We don't want to erase the waters. So we start scaring her and we start frightening her. And basically the Gemara goes through how we basically scare the living daylights out of this poor woman. We tear her clothing and we use psychological torture to get the woman to admit. And the Gemara says very severe things we do to break the woman down. We make her carry heavy things. We make her walk. Basically, nobody could withstand this torture. And then we start telling her stories about great people who did things wrong and admitted. And we tell her, the Gemara says, we tell her the story of Yehuda. Yehuda lived with Tamar and he was Maida. So if Yehuda could be Maida, you could also be Maida. And then we tell her Reuven. Reuven lived with Bilhah, and Chazal say he was Maida. He admitted it. Says the Rambam, very interesting, look at number 30. Look at the heading. Rambam Hilchos. Hilchos. It's interesting, the Rambam calls Hilchos Saita, he spelled it not with a samach, with a sin. Interesting, he spells Hilchos Saita with a sin. Says the Rambam, we take the woman to Yerushalayim, and we put her in front of the Bezin Agada. We scare the living daylights out of her. We don't let her husband there. She says, I want my husband standing next to me. We say, too bad. And we basically scare her. We say, lady, you don't want to do this to yourself. We say many great people did bad things. You better admit. We say many great people sinned and they admitted, like Yehuda. Says the Rambam, Umaisa Reuven bepilegesh aviv al pshatai. We tell her the story of Reuven and the father's concubine, al pashtai. The simple meaning in the story. In other words, we don't tell her any drashas. We don't tell her the Rama's pshat. That there was once a great guy named Reuven and it was pitter-pattering by the room. And, no, because then he didn't do anything wrong. So big deal, he admitted. We tell her the literal story that Reuven went and had relations with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and then he admitted it. You hear what's going on? The Rambam says we tell the lady the literal story of Bilhah with Pilegesh Aviv. Says the Kesef Mishnah, what do you mean we tell her the literal story? But it never happened. Says the Kesef Mishnah, of course it never happened. We just tell her it to scare her into thinking that a great tzaddik did not there and admitted. But chas v'shalom, Reuven never sinned. Herstamaisa. We basically bring her into the Bezdin. We make up a bubba maisa about Reuven. We read the story kapashtoi. We don't tell her the Rama's pshat. We don't tell her Rabbeinu Ephraim's pshat. We tell her the literal story, so she should think Reuven made a big blunder and admit it. Says the Rama, what do we see from here? That in order not to erase the name of God, we could lie and make up a story about one of the biggest all-time tzaddikim, so she should think that Reuven did not and admit it. But Reuven never did it. We see from here that you could be moitzi shemra, even on a tzaddik, to avoid erasing the name of Hashem. You hear? You could say moitzi shemra on a tzaddik to avoid erasing the name of Hashem. Says Rama, what's greater? What's more important? Not to erase the name of Hashem or to make peace? Making peace is even greater than erasing the name of Hashem, because we know we erase the name of Hashem to make peace. So if you're allowed to make up a baba maisa about Reuven in order to avoid erasing the name of Hashem, Kal v'chomer, you're allowed to make up a Motzi Shemra about somebody to make peace between husband and wife, and certainly to make peace in a city. Says the Rama, from this story, from this halacha, that to a soita, we tell them over the literal meaning of the story of Reuven, we see you're allowed to make up a tale about somebody, even a great person, in order to create peace. Because if you can make up a tale, which is not true, in order not to erase the name of God, you could certainly do it to create peace. So there's a big kasha on this Rama. And the kasha is, this kasha is raised by the Yismach Moshe, and it's raised by the Sefer Emek Bracha of Aryeh Pomeranchik, or Talmud of the Brisker Rav. What's the sushtel? What's the analogy? Just because you can make up a story about Reuven, you should be able to make up a story about anybody to preserve the peace? The Gemara says in Brachos, if you're Motzi Shemra on somebody who's dead, it's like saying something bad about a rock. Halacha l'maisa, are you over in Isser Lashon Hara if you speak about someone who's dead? No. They're not a Jew. Once you die, there's no, it's it's only on a Jew. Once a person dies, biblically there's no Isser Lashon Hara. There's a cherem of the Rishonim not to do so, but there's no Isser Lashon Hara. The Gemara says in Masechta Brachos, the Gemara says on Daf Yotes, Kol ha-mesaper achar hames ki-mesaper achar even. If you talk about someone who died, it's like talking about a rock. Says the Gemara, it doesn't mean they don't know in Olam Haba. They know and they don't care. What doesn't bother them? The Gemara asks, but someone once spoke about Shmuel and God punished them. Says the Gemara, yeah, God will punish you because you're speaking bad about a Talmid Chacham, so now this is a Chilul Hashem. You're speaking against God. But it's not a problem to the person is dead. So listen carefully. Ask the Yismach Moshe, ask the Emek Bracha, how could the Rama say that just like you're allowed to say a Baba Maisa about Reuven, you're also allowed to make up a story about somebody else to create peace? You're allowed to say a story about Reuven because Reuven's not alive and he doesn't care. But about a regular person who's alive, which is a din of Ben Adam HaChaveroi, there's no precedent, there's no source that you can make up a story about someone who's alive in order to create peace. From Reuven, Reuven's dead. But says in Megadim Chadashim, but based on everything we learned tonight, apparently Reuven does care when you say nice things about him. The Haraya, when the Rama said his drasha, Reuven came down and gave him a big kiss. And when Rabbeinu Ephraim said his drasha, Reuven came down. But the Mason don't care. It doesn't insult them. But apparently it made a big difference for Reuven. Reuven was very gratified when somebody was able to read the Pasuk in his favor. The Rama is going l'shitase, says the Sefer Megadim. The Rama who said this drasha and saw that Reuven came and gave him a big kiss, the Rama understands that to Reuven, he takes it personally how you read these psukim. And if you nevertheless, to a soita, you're allowed to read the pasuk kepashte and interpret it literally, that Reuven actually did something wrong, from there the Rama derives and order l'man hashalom, you could also be Motzi Shemra in order to preserve the peace of the city. So we should be Takabi Zoicha on Yud Daled Kislev, the yard site of Reuven ben Yaakov. We hope that Reuven ben Yaakov should be Melitz Ba'adenu for B'suras Tova, Simchas Anachas, Ad Bias Gol Tzedek.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.